Pay attention. Your human system is designed to be controlled, to be programmed, and to be driven. By you, of course. But if you don't take control of these systems, something else will. I'm going to give you the bad news up front. Your super powerful human systems are open to being hacked. They were designed to be easily controlled and programmed and reprogrammed by you. You didn't incarnate into a lump of unresponsive flesh. You incarnated into a powerful, highly responsive, programmable, customizable vehicle. But that feature, the malleability of your human system, is also a huge vulnerability. But who could have imagined you'd incarnate into a system that was meant to be customized and then not take control of any of it, not investigate how your systems work, how to use them, and what they can do for you? That wasn't supposed to happen. Hi, you made it. I'm at Changi Airport in Singapore on a 2-hour layover. So let's take a little stroll. I'm going to stretch my legs, and we're going to talk about self-mastery and becoming your own authority. That is to say, developing mastery over your human vehicle, your mind, your emotions, your imagination, and your energy. Your inner life is your sacred domain, your kingdom. But let's be honest, too often you act like you are just renting the space, or even worse, you're squatting, at the mercy of thoughts that ambush you and obscure your innate clarity, at the mercy of feelings that lead you into dark alleys, and insecurities and thought loops that siphon away your energy and attention. Imagine living with the clarity that comes from radical self-honesty, being able to truly trust yourself and your intuition. Imagine living life all in, not holding back out of confusion, fear, or uncertainty. You feel strongly that there's a more vibrant, freer version of yourself beneath the layers of old programming and cultural conditioning. You feel it, right? You do. That there's something more, that you're something more. There's a feeling that's been building, and it's so strong now that you don't want to wait anymore, because you have been waiting. What have you postponed? Are you waiting to be whole? Waiting to be honest with yourself? Waiting for the right time to give yourself permission? Waiting for the right time to stop spinning up barriers, conditions, and excuses? At the very heart of it, you long to hear and transmit your core signature frequency, to really hone in on that, tune into that signal, the pure heart of the future self. And you can do all this, be all this, and more, if you'll commit to becoming your own authority, to developing self-mastery. But here's a strange thing. If you're a spiritual seeker, developing personal authority may feel like it's at cross purposes with your spiritual practices, your spiritual philosophy. Isn't that strange? Why is it that so many people who are following a spiritual path have a particularly hard time developing personal authority? What's up with that? Well, this is what we're talking about today. Becoming a fully sovereign adult human, and why spirituality may be blocking you, or at least delaying your progress. So what is self-mastery anyway? I refer to this in different ways: personal authority, personal agency, or even spiritual sovereignty. These are all names that describe stepping into authentic adulthood, which certainly has nothing to do with your chronological age. It means accepting responsibility for yourself and for your human apparatus, your human vehicle. Yes, your human is a vehicle, a powerful one at that. It has many advanced systems that are meant to be at your service, but they mostly run on autopilot or default programming. You are the captain of this ship and also its caretaker, but you probably experience your journey more as a passenger. let's look at some of the powerful, advanced systems you have at your command right now, shall we? We'll start with your thoughts, your conscious mind. Your ability to focus, direct, and curate your thoughts is one of your outstanding superpowers, one of your human vehicle's advanced systems. Honestly answer these questions. Do you know how it works? Do you use it intentionally? Can you power it down into standby when it's not needed? Or is this system constantly running? Do you experience yourself as the passenger with thoughts just happening to you? Are these thoughts even yours? Well, here's the good news, and I hope you really let this sink in. Your human vehicle was designed to be easily controlled and programmed and reprogrammed by you. You incarnated into a highly responsive, programmable, customizable vehicle. Exciting, isn't it? So what's the catch? Because you can feel that coming, right? Well, here's the bad news. All your super powerful human systems are easily hacked. That feature, this hyper malleability, is also your human vehicle's biggest weakness. But honestly, who knew you'd incarnate into a system that was meant to be customized and then curl up in the passenger seat watching your childhood reruns on the entertainment system and not take control of any of it, not investigate how your systems work, how to use them and what they can do for you. No one saw that coming. This is important, so pay attention. Your human system is designed to be controlled, to be programmed, and to be driven. By you, of course, but if you don't take control of these systems, something else will. Something else does. You need look no further than your thoughts. Just pay close attention to your thoughts for the rest of the day. Are they yours? Can you switch them off? What are they telling you? Do they serve you? How much of your thinking is generated by childhood programming? How about cultural programming, media manipulation, and social contagion? How about your emotional system? This one is surely the most confusing, partly because we can't see it clearly. I mean, are you really clear on the difference between your emotions, your feelings, and your moods? And are they even yours? If you're highly empathic, you're well aware of how easy it is to experience the emotions, feelings, and moods of other people. And a lot of the time, you aren't aware that's what you're experiencing. The energy you're running through your emotional system doesn't even belong to you at all. This kind of emotional osmosis is heightened in empaths, but most people experience this to some degree without knowing it. Another God-level system that comes with your human vehicle is your imagination. This is the one we neglect the most. What images and stories do you allow to play on the sacred screen of your mind's eye? Do you skillfully and intentionally use the system for healing, reality building, editing past and future events? Do you use it for creation? If you don't have authority over your thoughts, emotions, imagination, and ultimately your energy, then you're experiencing life through a series of foreign patterns and programs. In the end, self-mastery isn't about control. That's not really the end goal or the ultimate prize of self-mastery, even though the practices that lead to self-mastery focus on gaining control of your systems. The real prize is uncovering and living from your essential nature. Imagine accepting only your essential nature as your blueprint. This is the path of radical self-honesty, responsibility, and fidelity to self. Uncovering your essential nature means you'll be doing a lot of deprogramming, which is to say, releasing patterns that were and are continuously impressed upon you. These patterns or programs obscure and distort your essential nature. To do this work, you need to develop the ability to discern what is authentically you and what is not you. Spiritual sovereignty is accepting nothing less from yourself than full adulthood. No reasons, no excuses, no self-deception, no defaulting to living on autopilot. Almost every person, no matter their chronological age, is riddled with outdated and corrupted childhood programming. Self-mastery requires unwavering dedication to being an adult and not vacillating in and out of mental and emotional dependency and self-deception. Being your own authority requires more than just taking full responsibility for yourself, but also taking charge of yourself. It's active. You're in possession of the marvelous yet highly problematic human apparatus. Self-mastery requires that you apply yourself diligently to discovering how the thing works and taking charge of it. When you truly accept authority, you'll embrace the truth that you are alone, utterly. Does that sound bleak? Actually, it's fantastically liberating, but only once you've done the work to overcome the lifelong habit of placing your point of reference outside of yourself, looking outside of yourself for validation, approval, permission, self-esteem, spiritual awakening, and a blueprint for reality. Being sovereign is a one-man show. Being your own authority means there's only one seat in the cinema and it belongs to you. At present, you have a packed house filled with fragments from the past, characters you just made up, including yourself, worldviews inherited from your family and culture, and of course, a bunch of other people in your life. Lovers, friends, clients, neighbors, teachers, family, all trying to jostle their way in to get a seat. Becoming your own authority also means you have to stop taking yourself seriously. You no longer need to prop yourself up, nor do you indulge in the habit of tearing yourself down. So the approval and judgment of other people mean nothing to you because you've stopped doing this yourself. If there's something to be learned from their criticism or appraisal, you make use of it, but there's no one in the world whose opinion of you has any value, for two reasons. One, because your point of reference for authority is internal, not external. And two, because you've purged the need to have any opinion of yourself internally. You see clearly that having a robust self-image is actually an enormous handicap to dealing with reality directly. So what does it take to develop self-authority? Well, you need to be fearless, lucid, and willful. Fearlessness is essential. This isn't like other practices that are designed to do things like open your heart or generate compassion or reach altered states of consciousness. When you do those kind of spiritual practices, you feel this amazing release and you get an energetic and emotional reward. It's fun, it's cathartic. You feel a little like you've been on a roller coaster ride. Your consciousness is expanded, and personal authority isn't like that. At some point in this process, you will finally get to know your essential nature. This is your undistorted blueprint. And when this happens, it's really amazing. It's an amazing discovery, though it still isn't a rainbow blast of emotion or release. Anyone who has gained mastery and personal authority will tell you it's priceless, but it's hard-won. It's an investment you make in yourself every day. But before you even get there, you're going to have to deal with a tsunami of discomfort, blowback, and resistance. Some of it will be internally generated. You want to be free, but you don't want to give up your excuses, your reasons, your way out. Accepting full authority for yourself means giving up the habits, stories, and worldviews that you've been using to escape adulthood. Avoid radical honesty. Put off being 100% committed to yourself. Some of these stories and worldviews are ones you cherish. You've built your identity around them. Lots of resistance and pressure will be directed at you from others. With very few exceptions, no one wants this for you, even if they love you. When you become your own authority, you're very hard to control. The power dynamics in relationships change. The way you present yourself and transact in the world changes. People and groups and institutions and society don't want that. You'll have to face things that are unpleasant about yourself and other people. And you need to do all this without turning away, running away, contracting back into the safety of business as usual. So you have to be fearless. Self-mastery, authentic adulthood isn't something you add to yourself. It's deep transformation, and that requires dissolving old beliefs, structures, and even the old self. developing radical self-honesty, confronting the truth about your own motivations and the motivations of others requires fearlessness. Are you willing to see the truth of what is without filters and compromises and without blame or excuses? The next ability you need to develop is lucidity. Lucidity is your inner light of clarity, and it's a tool that gets very precise and powerful the more you use it. You need this in order to cut through the torpor, the self-deception, the confusion, the veil of the mundane world, all your default programming. You need lucidity in order to see things as they are, not through the filters of old programming and not as you prefer them to be. You need this kind of clarity to see yourself as you are, totally distinct from your self-image, the one you create and the one that is projected onto you by others. You need to hone your clarity so it can act like a laser and cut through all the stories, the content, the drama, so you can find out what is really going on with you in any given moment. This lucidity is a kind of penetrating, supreme wakefulness. And finally, you need to be willful. No one told me to investigate the human apparatus to find out how it works. I didn't employ some system or method that I learned from someone. Certainly, I picked up things here and there, but that's because I was driven. So any nugget of any value that I came across, I worked and took apart and remade and worked again. I didn't even really know I was doing anything, not in some overarching plan kind of way. I just burned to be free, to be the author of my own experience and not to be eaten up and nullified by the world. You need to reclaim the kind of willfulness that simply will not accept being distorted and eaten up by the overculture, the machine. It takes a lot of fire to refuse to just roll over and accept the foreign pattern over your own essential nature. If you develop an irresistible drive to do it, you will. Let the notion roll around and see if it catches fire, because if it does, it's a fire you won't be able to put out, and your life will yield to it. Becoming my own authority was something I embarked on when I was still a kid, believe it or not, long before any kind of spiritual focus or awakening. And to me, self-mastery has nothing in particular to do with spirituality of any kind. So I don't see it as a spiritual endeavor per se, but rather a human endeavor that very few of us undertake. It's more like discovering your own user's manual to the human apparatus. Developing personal authority and mastery over your mind, emotions, imagination, and energy should be the normal course of development as you move from chronological childhood to adulthood. You should be able to look around you and see many people doing this, starting in their teen years and gaining experience and mastery into their 20s and 30s and beyond. There should be nothing exceptional about this. But that's not the reality. Following this path to personal authority is completely abnormal, exceptional. You'll have to have a lot of fire and will to stay on this path because you'll face constant pressure to conform, to retreat back into what's normal. So ask yourself if you're willing to do what it takes to become self-possessed, to take full possession of yourself. The alternative is quite unpleasant because if you're not in possession of yourself, something else will be. So why do spiritual seekers have such a hard time with developing personal authority? Developing self-mastery isn't in conflict with spirituality, but these two paths can appear to be at cross purposes sometimes. And I think what it really comes down to is one is more feminine, open, passive, accepting, and transcendent. The other is more masculine, active, discriminating, and penetrating. One is transcending the self, and the other is finally making an unconditional commitment to the self. The mystic and the engineer. Their opposite natures complement each other, complete each other. And yet, I talk to so many spiritually focused people who have a hard time with personal agency. So let's look at some of the ways this can be confusing. First, and this is a big one, let's talk about boundaries. Many spiritual practices favor dissolving boundaries and distinctions, for instance, between you and other living beings. Focusing on the interconnectedness can help you develop compassion for people, animals, and plant life. These practices direct you toward the understanding that your separate sense of self is illusory and that you don't exist except within the greater web of interdependencies. Spirituality also dissolves the boundaries between your separate sense of self and the source, the all that is, letting go of your edges and coming home, realizing a deep oneness. Dissolving your boundaries, your separateness, through spiritual practice is beautiful, profound, and powerful. Practicing self-mastery requires you to be very clear about your boundaries. In a pragmatic sense, you become aware of your locus of authority. Is it internal or external? You distinguish between what's yours and what's not yours. You make clear distinctions between your authentic thoughts, feelings, motivations, and beliefs, and those imposed upon you by other people, your culture, institutions, and family. It may seem like a paradox, but there is no inherent conflict between these two perspectives. Yet I've noticed people can have a hard time shifting gears between dissolving boundaries in their spiritual practice and working actively with boundaries, distinctions, and personal authority. Spiritual philosophies that emphasize radical acceptance and non-attachment can seem incompatible with personal authority. These philosophies teach deep surrender to the present moment and a release of personal desire and aversion. You cultivate inner peace by accepting things as they are, recognizing the impermanence of all things, and flowing with the rhythms of life. This approach encourages you to relinquish the need to control outcomes and to embrace whatever comes with equanimity. Developing and exercising personal agency means you're actively shaping your inner experience by taking responsibility for your thoughts, feelings, imagination, and energy. The emphasis is on developing strong personal boundaries, exercising authority over yourself, taking responsibility for your actions and decisions, and actively addressing challenges. In spiritual practice, there is this idea that resistance leads to suffering, and on some level you know this to be true. But when I talk about developing self-mastery, you'll hear me mention resistance quite often. Resist being over-patterned, resist becoming food for energy parasites, and on some level, you feel this also to be valid. So it can be confusing, right? How about the ego? The way many spiritual teachings address the ego can also feel problematic when you're working to develop personal agency. Some spiritual practices treat the ego as the enemy and try to starve it or beat it or negate it into submission. Other philosophies see no need for the battle, but rather lead you to realize the ego is not real. It's more like a reflection. Your being is vast, clear, and untroubled. There's no need to wrestle with the ego. But when you work with self-mastery, you actively engage the ego. You study it, question it, reprogram parts of it. There's no particular call for its destruction. The ego has uses. People on the spiritual path can have a confused and kind of tortured relationship to the ego. Next, let's look at materiality, the self, the body, the material world. Plenty of spiritual philosophies are colored by negativity toward the material aspects of life. Sensuality, the body, desire, pleasure, money, ambition, sex. They often focus on intangible metaphysical concepts versus the nuts and bolts of daily reality. Self-mastery has no interest in transcending materiality, but rather dives right into it to learn how it works and how to engage with it. One path is saying, let go of it and be free. The other says, get in there and make it work. And there are many more areas where spiritual philosophy and practice can seem at odds with self-mastery. How about the ethics of spirituality? These are heavily influenced by culture and religion. Spirituality enjoins you to think of others, to be kind to others, to put their needs before your own and act selflessly in service to others. Self-mastery encourages you to be your own best advocate, your best friend, your biggest supporter. It teaches you how to live in devotion, fidelity, and service to yourself. That can be confusing. There is often an underlying culture of discipleship in spirituality, even guru or hero worship. We have a habit of turning spiritual teachers into celebrities. Also, the desire to join spiritual communities, sangha, and groups. This may seem antithetical to the inherently solitary nature of pursuing your own authority, developing an inner locus of authority. And finally, many spiritual paths present a reality where the rewards for your efforts are to be found somewhere other than here and now. Some even go so far as to pronounce that this world is fallen, or unreal, or perhaps a trap, and there's nothing in it worth having. Your work here is to gain a more favorable rebirth, or to avoid rebirth entirely and get out. Pursuing spirituality and self-mastery can sometimes feel like you're trying to go in two directions at once, but they're not in conflict. They remind me of the image of the Chariot tarot card. You know the one. It's really worth studying closely, not the ordinary divinatory meaning, but the deep, esoteric truth coded into the image itself, the mystic, the divine, the transcendent, the sovereign, the explorer, the engineer. You don't need to choose between them. These are the two opposing yet complementary forces that drive the chariot, though in the tarot image they are paradoxically depicted standing still. How perfect. Another thing that can really keep you going around in circles is looking for answers to your problems in the wrong place. Spiritually focused people often look at their problems as spiritual problems, and they try to find solutions within spirituality. But if your problem is actually the result of corrupted programming or a lack of personal agency, trying to find a spiritual remedy only leads to frustration and confusion. It's important to really look at whatever drama is appearing in your life and see clearly what caused it so you can look in the right place for your solution. I made a short video discussing this, and you can find it on the screen now. Now remember this. Remember, you are strong and beautiful. You are both the mystic, the transcendent, and the sovereign, the engineer. You are the chariot. Thanks for showing up today and taking this walk around the airport with me. I'll talk to you again soon.